need to focus on people.
I don't know.
Or do I need to stay there?
You probably need to stay right there,
Oh,
Rachel Mosier.
sorry.
How do you say your last name? Mosier?
Mosier. Oops.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Primal Scream. I'm Matt,
And I'm Todd, always on the edge.
as always. And we have a special guest with us today, Rachel Mosier, who's a certified therapist, and all the different little things after your name. What does it all mean?
So I'm a licensed independent social worker, but I also have my master's in child development.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
I have to get this out of the way. Was it worth it?
Yes.
Why didn't you just become a life coach, lady? Just save all the money on tuition. You had a calling. You could have went to the public library. You could have read up on all this stuff.
No.
You could have been Goodwill Hunting, couldn't you?
No. And plus, well, I don't think life coaches existed then. Or I don't remember that.
How long have you been doing this for?
Over 10 years.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't, they might
No?
have, but I
Yes.
didn't know
Well,
what
How
they
would I know? Oh, life coaches, how long have they been around?
How long have they been around? What's your guess?
Well, I'm going to say 5. 5 years?
I never. Don't mind me. I'm just
Jeez
reaching. I
Louise.
was really careful. I was really afraid that I was going to knock over
Your beers.
my plethora of lubricants over here. But yeah, I would think that life coaches have been around for a long time, longer than 5 years.
Well,
like
I mean,
a
I think maybe
guru.
that's the title. I think you're right. Maybe that's like gurus, yogis, people that like spiritually guided you. Maybe that was more like it.
Oh,
But even
okay.
that to me doesn't sound like what today's life coach would be. But I don't know.
Well, and the training is so much different,
Okay,
you know.
break it down for me.
Well, I don't know that much about life coaches, but I happen to have a friend who just did a certification to become a life coach.
Okay.
And so that's something you can do. I think it took her like 8 weeks
Oh.
or something like that.
And you have a master's, so that's at least 6 years
Yeah.
of school.
Yeah. And it's,
And there's
so
no-
I have 2 masters in social work and child development, so it's 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no animosity. 8 weeks.
Sounds pretty
I
sweet.
know, no.
But she doesn't have
No.
any fancy acronyms behind her name, though. Then I put the time in. That's what those things are. They're like, put the time in, man. Stamp it right there by my name.
I put the time in.
Yeah.
And I have to do a good job because I have a lot of debt to pay off. I have to work my ass off for you. This has
Right,
got to be quality
right.
stuff.
Yeah. Maybe it's a
Did
little.
you feel like it? Are you catching up with that debt? I mean, do you feel good about it? I mean, it's going successful enough that you feel like, yeah, because I still have a mortgage on my college, and I'll probably have it forever. So I don't think it's ever going to be gone.
Yeah. There's different kinds of debt now.
Oh, gotcha.
You know.
What do you mean there's different kinds of
Well, you
what's
know,
the debt?
as you grow, like maybe you've paid off some debt, but now there's a mortgage and, you know,
Baby stuff.
baby stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I
We have 3 people watching us. Thanks, guys.
You know what? Don't worry. Don't get all caught up in how many views we have right now. This is important stuff. We're going to cover incredible things tonight. Rachel is stoked.
I am. I'm
So,
excited to be
yeah,
here.
I'm trying to I'm terrible with this social media thing, and I'm trying to share.
So we just lost a viewer. So please stop with the exclamations about what people are going to do.
Okay, here we go. I shared it. Anyway.
Oh, you're like seeing how many views we have.
I could just see it
Oh.
going. Well, I'm seeing for questions, actually,
Oh.
if they pop up, because it
Okay.
happens from time to time.
Oh, you were doing that. Okay, good job. All right.
Yep.
Let's get down to business, young lady.
Okay. Starting with
Brass
me.
tacks.
Yeah.
We're getting down to it.
All right.
I'm going to jump right in.
'Kay.
We have some issues. I have so many issues
Uh-huh.
that I'm not going to hide it. But one issue that just kind of jumped up at me today, I wasn't expecting to talk about this. It was completely shocking.
Okay.
I asked my son how he was doing today. How was school? You know, the normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, I can't. When are we going to be home? Because I want to see if there's anything new about the Florida shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he didn't look disturbed. He didn't look shocked. He didn't look scared. He wasn't showing me any of the things I would kind of hope to see. What he said was, I said, why? He goes, because I'm entertained by it.
Okay.
And it scared me, shocked me, and then I thought, well, I guess why wouldn't it? Why am I surprised that it entertains you? We just drove down the interstate and all of the assholes, the rubberneckers, oh, there was an accident? Ooh. Let's slow all down. I want to see a dead person.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we, as adults, we see examples like this pretty frequently. So why do you think, and why was I shocked, do you think, and why should it be really alarming, do you think? What's your opinion on it?
Why should it be alarming that your son wasn't?
I was pretty nervous that he was like, I'm really entertained by it. Really? Is that it?
Well,
Is it
first
entertaining?
Of all, how old is your son?
Well, he's 11.
11.
He's 11. So
Okay.
I was really trying to, how about this word? Were you shocked? Were you interested? Any of these other words work for you? He goes, no, I'm entertained by it. I'm entertained by it. Now, he threw out a story that I'm not quite sure if it's true or not. Roughly, there's other camera angles. There's video from students that were in the school that have been published, whether it was on Snapchat or whatever, and you see possibly, again, I didn't see the footage, so correct me if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm just saying what I got from my son. This is what he is being influenced by, whether he's right or wrong. This is what he said. But there's video of the shooter walking by, like you see the feet, and the kid is laying there pretending to be dead, and he's texting his mom, "I love you." He's right next to me.
Oh.
But my son is entertained by this.
Well, and so, not knowing your son, so yeah, I'm not. So you have to take what I say, just being more of a global thing when I think about an 11-year-old saying this.
Sure.
Okay. Because
Right.
of course it'll depend on your son's experiences to go. We won't go deeper into all of that. But what I think about is, like when you said we all tend to look at a crash that happens,
Right,
and
yeah.
things like that. So one defense mechanism that we all have is that when something scary happens, we want to understand it more. And so one of the ways we do that is to actually learn about it more or watch it more, and it almost looks like we like it more.
So could it be just
But we're
that
actually
he's
scared.
confused and he doesn't understand why he's drawn to this?
Yes.
And he's just like, well, what's the closest thing? I'm entertained.
Because being scared is a hard feeling. Being entertained is a little easier feeling. And so it can be a defense mechanism to then change that into, I'm entertained by this, but really it's scaring the heck out of me, and I don't know how to cope.
Because it was really easy for me to jump to the conclusion of no more Fortnite. We're not playing any more of this first-person shooter stuff. You
Yeah.
guys are way too entertained by shooting, by strategy, by what did he do? What did he have on him? I mean, my kids know all this nomenclature, basically, of weapon types.
Well, that's another thing, is that we're all becoming more desensitized to these shootings, and it's becoming more normalized that, I mean, we all know that probably on how we reacted to this one versus when, say, Sandy Hook happened or the first Columbine. It's like we talked about that, everyone talked about it for so long, and now it's like, oh, another one?
Yeah. And I heard something the other day that the whole gun debate started, and both sides are going after each other, so to speak. But I heard somebody, it was a Republican, who said the NRA is about gun sales, not necessarily gun rights, was this guy's opinion. And it made me pause because I hadn't really thought of it that way before, or maybe that's naive on my part. But I was hearing that for the first time going, oh, so they really just are there to help out gun sales and not necessarily gun owners. But I don't know enough about the NRA. So I heard that, but hearing it from a Republican kind of surprised me. And then then they went into like a debate on some show, and it was a legitimate debate about and really thoughtful debate on both sides. They're going, okay, so do we really need to have assault weapons? And is it okay for me to have a handgun and a shotgun to hunt? But do I need an assault rifle, and is that somehow impeding on my rights? And the conversation was really nice, I thought, compared to the topic they were talking about. But it was interesting to finally see people go, I don't know if we hit a wall. Did we hit a wall with this one? Columbine was the first one, and then Sandy Hook was a lot of children. So those stand out in my mind for sure. But yes, this is one more that's just almost like a norm.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is that it doesn't happen in other places like it happens here. And I don't know if that's just a gun thing or not.
I don't know. I mean, it's easy to throw that out just kind of willy-nilly. Boom. But how much do we know about other countries? Do you watch? I know, but I'm sorry. I shouldn't say I know. I didn't mean to cut you off. What I meant to say is we don't watch news from other countries constantly. Mm-hmm. There could be a big story that happens, but we care about London, right? We might hear something from Japan or China, right? North Korea, but we're not inundated with, well, was there a stabbing in Australia? Have the stabbings, deaths gone up? You know, we don't get inundated with it.
That. So I'm gonna get this wrong, but was it Iceland or Greenland when they had that kid
went onto that island? I think it was.
Oh.
Well, I'm not sure if it was Greenland or Iceland, but I understand what you're saying.
So
the Christian camp.
The Christian camp. Yeah.
And we do know that, say, in Japan, where they have stricter gun laws, there are way less killings.
And didn't Australia do that too? They had their last mass shooting and they started banning all guns. Everybody agreed on both sides to ban it, and they haven't had anything happen since then.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would be speaking out of turn. I'm not sure about that stuff. All I know is it's really easy to blame everything on the gun and not about, well, why did that kid feel that way?
It's a mental health issue, absolutely. I totally agree.
But why are we having such a mental health issue? Because this kind of takes me into my next topic that I was going to ask you about is it, in your opinion, that there's more people needing therapy now than ever before? And is this an easy way out? Are people going, man, I need to go see a therapist? Why is that? Why are we not connecting more? Is it because we're doing it on social media and that's not as fulfilling as talking to your neighbor? You know, are we blocking out our loved ones because we're constantly on our phones? I see a lot of comparisons as far as neglect goes, or feeling lonely or isolated. When you think of like the latchkey kids of the 1980s, right? They come home from school, they have responsibilities, they got their own key, the parents aren't home. Okay, parents might be home now, but their faces are in their phones or their laptops or the computers, or they're watching TV, and the kids are doing their own thing. There's still neglect. It's a different type of neglect. So why is it that it feels like we have way more need for therapy now?
Well, you know, there absolutely is a correlation between, they've done, you know, there was just a study that came out about it, that the Pew Research Foundation found that so if we look at in 2012, almost every American had a cell phone. And since then, our rates of loneliness have drastically increased as well. So we can't necessarily, of course, say it's causation that the phones cause loneliness, but it's pretty strong correlation.
Right.
And we do know that if a kid gets a cell phone before the age of 15 with social media, their rates of suicidal ideation and depression also go way up. If they get it after 16, it doesn't have that same spike.
I can't imagine.
What would you attribute that to? Did they attribute that to anything in particular? Is it brain development at some different level or something?
That's what I would think too. They didn't go into that in the study, but you're not as equipped to deal with the constant letdown of, say, seeing your friends on Facebook having fun and you're not, and you can't think as abstractly or rationally about what else might be happening.
Well, you might not be communicating either, because I think about the idea of like not being invited to a party, but you're sitting at home with your parents watching a TV show or something, and you're bummed out about it, so you might talk about it. Whereas if you just happen to see it on your phone, on Snapchat, that people are all hanging out together, you're just on your phone and you don't really necessarily are connecting with people. So it really has to be that isolating piece that must be, and also reading that, like, I think the last article I read said that kids with ADHD should do an hour or less. So if you're doing an hour, you're pushing the limits for your kid.
You mean on social media or
On just immediate phone electronics
Yeah.
period. And that's pretty intense, because
Not
I
serious.
work really hard at how much I'm on my electronics, and I know I use more than an hour easy. I mean, probably closer to 2.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get up there when you're just looking at it every, how many times an hour.
Right. And I hate Facebook. I haven't been on for a while, but I have it now because we are doing the show. And so now I hide it on a third page so I don't see it at all. Because it's just too easy to hop on and go, oh, I wonder how Dr. Marks is doing and see how his kids are. And next thing I know, I'm lost for a good hour.
Right. Or getting lost down a Twitter feed or something like that. I mean, social media can be, it for sure is entertaining. It can be stimulating as far as, I'm learning something, right? Maybe I only see my family on family reunions once a year or Christmas, but hey, I get to know what Jill is doing, my cousin that I've never seen. So the next time I see her, I'm gonna be like, oh, your daughter did so great. I don't do that shit, but I could do that, right?
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from an outsider looking in, because again, I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook either, but it seems like it is a very women-driven social media.
Facebook?
Facebook. Every lady I know is really heavily into Facebook. Do you think there's more of a draw to women for social media than men?
I don't know if I could answer that. I don't know.
Aren't women more social creatures, so to speak, in general? Is that unfair?
It's
pretty common, right?
We could say that they look for maybe that more caregiving, nurturing environment of being a part of something.
Okay. Well,
Makes sense to
maybe a different way to ask this question as far as social media goes. In your experience, have people come to you and said, I really feel like it's easier to plug into social media. It's easier to go this route into my phone than it is to deal with real life. So I neglect my kids. I neglect my home. I neglect my partner. I neglect my my job. Have you heard that? Has that gone up recently?
I would say yes. And I would say I hear it more with adolescents don't necessarily know that's what they're doing, but that's what they're talking about. They don't realize that it's a problem necessarily, but they do say, that I don't have any friends, but I have friends on the internet, or I'm doing my games and talking to, and so they don't necessarily realize it's a problem. Many of the college students will tell me that it's much easier to stay in my dorm room and connect online than it is to meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting because it goes right. JD and I were talking about it today. All of our kids are really interested in college right now because we have 2 freshmen, or next year are going to be freshmen, and we're starting to plan classes and do all this stuff. And so we're already thinking ahead past that, saying, so what are you going to start gearing things towards? Do you have an idea yet? We're not trying to nail them down now, but obviously. And so all the kids are like, oh, what's college like? Even the younger ones are going, oh, that sounds neat. How do credits work? And how do you get to choose the fun things and all that kind of stuff? And she said, oh, you really love a dorm experience. It's kind of fun. It's like you're in an apartment, but you leave your door open. Your friends come by and say hi and listen to music. Again, a total different paradigm from when we were in college and from what they are going to be in college. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be more closed doors because they're uncomfortable? Because you kind of were forced. Dorms make you be social. I mean, you have to be out there. You have a roommate. Hey, what are you doing? Well, get out of your bed. Who cares? Let's go down the hallway and go to Tom's room and whatever.
Yeah.
Now you can just be like, oh, I'm just going to stay on my phone or my computer and kind of connect with people that way. And you could have a silent floor on a dorm.
Well,
that sounds sad.
Don't you feel like, and I'm generalizing, this is off the hip, and I don't have master's degrees, but back in the day, it's always been a norm when you go to college to drink and party. One, you're not under the thumb of your parents, which I get. That's part of it, right? But drinking also loosens you up, and now you have less inhibitions. Like, I don't really want to leave my dorm room. Oh, yeah, we
I'll
can
go
hang
across the
out.
hall.
We'll go across the
Yeah.
hall. Oh, well, let's go down to the bar. Yeah, we'll make friends. I see. I mean, when I went to college for a little bit, I didn't do the whole dorm thing. I went into the military shortly after high school. Never had that real college experience, so to speak. But that's how I would look at kids going to college right away, right? They're spreading their wings. They're like, oh, no one's watching me. I'm going to party.
Yeah.
But nowadays, if you're talking about people or kids who have a lot of friends on social media but no actual friends, I would expect that drinking and going overboard with trying to feel normal when you go to college would be skyrocketing.
Interesting. I'm not sure, but this study that I'm talking about from a professor at San Diego University. So what she was also saying is that nowadays, so this was more about adolescence. So I'm guessing this is going to spill into college, obviously. But is that our adolescents are physically safer because they don't experiment with alcohol. They don't get their driver's license, possibly because they're just doing all of they don't need to socialize. They don't
Why do
have
I
the
need to drive to my friend's house? I
Yeah.
can just get online.
Yeah, and so they're not taking the risks that maybe we did
Mm-hmm.
that did kind of prepare us for maybe how to socialize or to take those risks in the safety of our own home, where we still had parents that would probably take care of us.
Right.
And so I imagine it might be the opposite thing. I'm not sure, where they're even more scared to take those risks in college. 'Cause they're
Even
not.
more withdrawn.
Maybe.
Even more on their computers.
Or
even
do they
less.
go? Yeah, or maybe it goes that way, or then maybe it goes to the other extreme where they have to drink more or something to loosen up because they didn't experiment earlier
Yeah.
with things.
And I guess I'm going off what I would be now.
Yeah.
If I had 0 friends and my whole life was on the internet, so to speak. I mean, I knew people, but we didn't talk. I'll see you in the chat room tonight, or whatever,
Right.
But,
whatever
I mean,
it is.
Have you have you had the experience where you see somebody somewhere and you go, "Hey, good to see you. How you doing?" And you haven't talked to them really ever, but you're friends on Facebook, or you've seen them a few times.
No.
I went and saw America here in town, and a gal I used to do CrossFit with, she was like 3 rows up, and she turned around and she saw me and she goes, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, good to see you. And I hadn't seen her probably, we hadn't had a conversation in a long time, but I had liked a picture of hers or seen that she's off skiing somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a really, I think it probably because I came about when I grew up when the internet started happening. It makes me, it's like, I'm able to recognize that disconnect really easy because I'm like, oh God, that's weird. I don't see her enough and talk to her enough to be this friendly. Not that I wouldn't be friendly, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
But
I haven't
all of a
developed
sudden you know like more about her
Yes.
than you do someone you know.
I know what her dog
Yeah.
looks like. I know what she likes to do on her free time. I know all these things about her, but I haven't really sat and talked to her. So it's a weird thing, and that's happened to me
It's really
a few
kind
times.
of, it's almost creepy,
It is a little creepy.
right?
Yeah, but they're just posting things. So I'm assuming they think people are posting things, and I don't, maybe, we are. And that's the disconnect that's bothersome. I just don't like the idea that, and she's not the only one. I have lots of friends who I have seen on there that I don't see on it's Aaron is a good example. I see things that he and Becca are doing all the time on social media. I'm like, oh, that's neat. Well, I like that picture. I haven't seen Aaron in months.
Isn't that weird that
So
you can
it's-
just like it something?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to engage
Right.
with somebody. I'll just like it. I'll just put a thumbs up.
Well, it's interesting too that Facebook caught up. Was it 2 years ago that they started doing different emojis because you don't want to.
Yeah.
My dad died. You didn't want to do that, and so they started seeing these social parameters that they had to change. They had to change them. So now you can put a sad face, so you can respond.
A frustrated face.
You can
Right.
respond in the appropriate emotional manner, but not really.
Right. But not really.
But not really.
Yeah. Your
Yeah,
emoji
that I
count.
mean that makes me feel as if we are nurturing an emotional response that is not only synthetic and not real, but it trains us to not be genuine to people. Like if I'm having a really hard time, Rachel, and you sit down with me and you're like, Matt, Now, we talked about this. You can't just go streaking through the quad. I took that from a movie. But anyway,
Think
but if
KFC
you
still
sat
open?
down and I could see your facial expressions, I can see your mannerisms, I can see your body language, you're either into what I'm talking about or I can tell that, oh,
Right.
Jesus Christ, again, you're looking away from me. There's so many different things that your body tells me,
Absolutely.
and that steers a conversation, that influences me. How do I feel? Should I be feeling this way? Is it insignificant? Oh my God, I've told her I've streaked in the quad 18 times this month. It's probably getting old because she's rolling her eyes.
Well, and it's 80% of communication is body language.
Yeah, so how could
So
we
that's- so how
possibly
could
just
you-
be like thumbs up,
Right.
frowny face? That to me, it's such a shallow way to exist with another person. And when you say, "Oh, I have 1,000 friends," you don't. You have 1,000 acquaintances who may or may not really know you. Because somebody might friend request me, and I go, "All right."
Well, and that makes me think and go back to these kids or people that end up doing these mass shootings, and going back to these kids who are maybe playing video games all day long, or when they get home, that's their only interaction. They're missing out on social interaction and not learning and benefiting from the emotional connection. We all need that. That's part of human nature, is to be socially connected. And so if kids are spending 8 hours a day when they get home, or 4 hours a day, whatever it is, on playing video games, and they're not getting that, how much is
Right.
that impacting their emotional mental health?
Well,
A ton.
let me throw this in there. So when my kids go to their mom's house, there is more video game play because we just don't do it very often. But not that we don't ever do it. But it's my older son who, because his mom lives very far away, and not that he goes out and goes and hangs out with his friends when he's with us either, and we're much closer to his friends. But even then, he will get upset and be like, it's the only time outside of school that I can talk to them when I'm on my headset and I have a mic and I'm playing a game. And so I actually get a chance we talk, we chat, we laugh, we make jokes while we're playing this game together. So and this is the part that, again, as a parent, I'm like going, okay, step up and do your job. But I'm trying to understand where he's coming from and know that, okay, well, every other week he doesn't get to really go see and be near his friends. So this is the one way he connects. But
he doesn't know that he's missing out on a lot more. He's getting that some connection, but we know that being in the presence of someone else is going to be more meaningful than just hearing them over the phone or the headset.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with you.
But they don't know. The kids don't know that. So to them, that feels like I'm getting enough. And so as the parent, where do we have to say, no, we actually have to start making you guys get together?
Yeah, but and where I was going to challenge you on this is, as parents, we're all trying to figure out. Like, how much time do I allocate to this? When do I have to put my hat on? My dad hat, my husband hat, my work hat. Oh my God, my kids have something going on every single night because of sports. We got to travel 5 hours somewhere. I got to spend $1,000 for basketball camp. So to then say to a parent, by the way, get your kid off the game and drive their asses to where their friend's house is, or create a play date, it becomes, for me, I would easily go, boop, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I've tapped out. I've redlined. I can't do
Yes.
any more. So I agree. Face-to-face, interacting with your friends, best way to do it. But on the flip side, the silver lining of doing something in the game system, my kids playing Fortnite, got their headsets on. As soon as they got on there, does it bother me a little bit that they know what an AK-47 is at 12 years old? I don't know. Maybe it should. But at the same time, they're also learning to play together, working as a team. I mean, people will say they got to go out for football. Yeah, they can get a concussion doing that, and they can work as a team over here, and they're interacting for a few hours with all their
Yes.
friends. Oh, and this video game that I am okay at. I'm pretty good at. Gives me a chance to sit down with my kid and flip him shit. He flips me a hard time. And there is that interaction that I wouldn't normally get because I have to contend with today's environment. And today's environment will have, I would be a fool to say I'm going to be able to rip out all social media. I'm going to be able to rip out all video games. I'm not going to have to contend with any of that other stuff. So then for the normal human being, you're like, okay, how do I balance it all?
Well, so a couple of things. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you can't be running your kids around every night to get together with their friends. And of course, back in my day, we talked on the phone.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing.
Right.
And that was a way of connecting. So absolutely. I think it becomes more of a issue if they're never seeing their friends, if all they're doing on Saturday is 8 hours a day just on there playing the video games.
Right.
So I think, in moderation, it's just another way of communicating and keeping in touch and all of that. But I would argue about the type of game that's being played and the shooting games.
Right.
I mean, it desensitizes them to guns and violence.
Yeah, sure.
And so in addition to that first comment you brought up about what your son said, not only maybe he's having a defense against being scared, and so he's wanting to feel interested in it, but also is he somewhat desensitized and interested in guns because that's what he's playing, and he's getting rewarded for knowing about guns and for shooting people. And
right.
What is that? I don't.
Right. And that's a fine line that I walk as a father, because I feel like my job is to ease them, like thicken their skin, ease them into what reality is. And the reality that I look at the world is it's harsh. It's a hard place. People are going to say things that you're not going to want to hear. You're going to be asked to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You're going to be told that you have to work this job. And you might have to do that to pay the bills. Life is not sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn farts. It can be disturbing at times.
Yes.
So how can I, as a loving father, roll in a somewhat nurturing horribleness in like I said, the fine line is I feel like I need to desensitize my kids to a certain degree so that when they go out in the world, they don't go, oh my God, what is that? You said the F word?
Well,
I've never been around a gun before. What does that do?
Well, you might not like me hearing this or me saying this, but
go ahead.
Most likely the stressors that they're going to face in the world isn't going to be whether or not they have an AK-47, right?
Right. I would agree that that wouldn't be the stressor.
Right. So I would argue that isn't the way to necessarily teach them how to deal with punches that come at them. One of the ways of dealing with it is having to disappoint them sometimes, to saying, no, you can't play the game anymore. How are you going to deal with that? If the boss says you have to come in at 6 a.m. because we have this due, how are you going to deal with that? Mm-hmm. Sure, it sucks. I want to be playing my game or I want to be sleeping in. How do you get your good feelings back and roll with it? I mean, that's, I think, the way of teaching them how to deal with it.
And I think it makes more sense to me to, I hate that one. It just flies right out of my head. I'm so close to 50. I'm going to keep blaming it on that. I'm right around the corner.
You can't be that.
I'm 47.
Okay. I was going to say he's 53. We're going backwards.
I'm very close. I think it's more along the lines of, I think the world at times can be a very harsh place. And so I'm changing my mode over the years. It's taken me a while with lots of help. And it makes me think that my job is to nurture them, love them, care for them, obviously guide them, but that the world is going to be harsh and they are going to figure it out. It's not necessarily my job to be the harsh brush that they have to get used to. That life is going to be like that. They'll have social interactions at school. They'll have bullying at school. Maybe they don't make the basketball team. They're going to have things that happen to them throughout life that is going to be testing them, as long as I'm not nerfing the whole world for them at the same time.
Yeah, and
I don't think me going, fucking suck it up. So you didn't make the team. Big damn deal. It's probably more important for me to go, hey, you worked really hard. Don't stop working hard. You're gonna make it someday. You don't give up after the first time. That could be the nurturing kind of part to help them get through the harshness of life.
Yeah, you just ruined your kid, by the way. You just ruined your kid.
Yeah,
you know what? You'll get there someday. Maybe you won't, kid. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will never amount to anything because you're lazy and you're expecting that you're going to have something because Dad said, you know what? Someday, you'll have it someday.
Well, right.
Because you're missing that special ingredient of if you work hard enough, there's a chance you could prove yourself to be worthy of that position.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess I didn't throw in every single parameter to how I'm going to.
I'm just saying, in one way, we are telling kids, you can be whatever you want, Johnny.
Right.
You can't, Johnny, because you don't have the genetics to be an NBA player. You don't have the genetics to be an all-star Olympic track sprinter. You can't be whatever you want to be. But let's reinforce work ethic and drive, and let's nurture those things. I think telling kids you can be whatever you want to be sets them up for failure. It's kind of like, Christine, thanks for watching. She put a lot of social media is always about the happy times.
Yes.
And so you get this weird outlook of reality like, oh, so everybody's always happy. Well, I'm not always happy. What's wrong with me?
Right.
And then that takes you down a spiral, which is kind of like, you can be whatever you want to be. Well, I'm not a superhero.
Right.
My dad said I could be a superhero. You know what I mean?
Right. No one posts, pictures of them being sad with their
Having a
family.
shitty day again.
Exactly. Yeah. So all you see is the good times. It's very, lopsided. And what I would add to that, because I agree with both your sides, and I would bring in there that, being nurturing and supportive, but yet also the reality of, and so what I would add in there is helping them learn how to cope with those feelings in the moment. So you're disappointed, and because that feeling is going to come up again and again. So what can we do with that feeling? Like, how can I help you with that feeling?
And I think on a regular basis, I do tell my kids things like, the reason why we're talking about this and working through this is life is really going to suck at times. It's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to know how to make it past through those tough moments.
Right.
And you can't bitch and moan and complain endlessly about something. You have to do something to fix something.
You can't wait for somebody else to pick you up. And
Exactly. That you have to, I've had enough times of being alone, as a child that were not healthy, that were more of like, but it's definitely influenced me to the point where I knew how to handle myself at a younger age probably than the average person. But I need my kids to know, because they're pretty well taken care of. It's a pretty nice life they have for themselves. But they need to know that there are going to be times when they don't have gas money, that they're stuck somewhere, that they don't have any money for food. Maybe they're in their dorm room and they didn't get whatever. They're going to need to be able to find those answers on their own.
Yeah. You know what I thought was interesting about what you just said? I was left alone a lot as a kid, which wasn't healthy, right? But wasn't it? Couldn't it have been? Why do we always look at adverse situations as always unhealthy? If you learn something from it, maybe it's not ideal. Maybe it's not leave it to beaver type of stuff. But you were left alone more than you would have liked. But you grew up. You learned things about yourself. You learned how to interact with your environment. You became stronger. You're not a crackhead.
Right.
If you were a crackhead right now and your whole life was in shambles and you're like, I can pinpoint the exact day, it was because I was left alone too long and this is where my life fell apart.
Right.
I would say, okay, granted, maybe you were locked in a box. That wasn't healthy. But you were left alone a little bit. So that
I love your extremes. Left alone a little bit. Locked in a box. There's there's no gray area in there.
I'm just saying, I think it's a fine line. I think people too easily say, woe is me. That was too hard. That should never happen. I shouldn't have happened to me, and it will never happen to my kids. Wait. I'm okay. I got everything. I'm fine.
Right, but if I could
I
make a
learned
difference,
something.
but if I could do
I'm not
something,
scarred by it.
but I can do something
It taught
different.
me something.
Right, absolutely. But could I get the same lesson from? It's like the thing we talked about being bullied.
Right.
Being bullied a majority of my childhood got me to the point where I can handle that kind of stuff without any issues at all. Was there another way I could have gotten that same education to learn how to handle myself and my emotions when things go bad for me? Absolutely.
I'm going to say
I'm not
Rachel's
gonna
going to say yes.
I'm not going to say that I think I probably learned from everything that's ever happened to me and taking
Right.
something away from it. But it's still okay for me to recognize and say, I can teach my kids how to handle adversity by showing them how to handle it, giving them coping skills, whatever, or helping them through tough situations that they're going to go through.
Right.
Then have to say, hey, I learned my lessons by not eating. So today we're not going to eat. We're gonna learn one of Dad's lessons because it worked for me. I think I can find a different answer without saying, you know what, the best way to handle being a bully, how to handle bullies is to be bullied. So let's get bullied.
And I would just add there, it's not all or nothing. So
Right.
maybe out of your experiences, you did gain strength and you are a stronger person, but you can still have emotional hurt in there. So you can be strong and it can be okay,
Right.
okay now, but yet maybe it comes out in another way sometimes.
For sure.
still
And we're all
emotional pain.
such complex animals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether, if someone if you're part of a long history of violence, your grandfather beat the shit out of your dad and your dad beat the shit out of you. And then all of a sudden, oh, you know what? I don't want my kids to be beat. So you just stop. But it's easy to fall into those, right?
Yeah,
And you see, oh, well, I got stronger because I dealt with this. And guess what? No bully ever bothered me in high school. Not because I beat the shit out of them, but because I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of this monster at home, sure. But I'm not scared of you. And I can deal with this. And there's positives to this. I mean, when adversity happens to people, you're either going to crawl into a shell, or if it's done, if you're experiencing it in tiny doses throughout your life, you learn from it and you're like, oh, that was a little uncomfortable. And I step out of that comfort zone. That was a little uncomfortable. Step out. Do I want somebody to get hit by a bus? No, too much. Do I want somebody to get beat to an inch of their life? No, too much. But we have a hard time socially, I think, saying, you know what? Removing all bullying from school, isn't there something to be learned from some things, from a little bit of name calling? Isn't there something to be learned by that? Isn't there something to be learned by some of the harshness? Even you today told me about a story of a coworker who coddles another person.
Right.
And you thought, for the love of God, how are they going to learn anything?
Right.
There has to be some stressor. There has to be some uncomfortableness. But if we nerf everything, which is my fear, that's my greatest. That's when I look at what's happening in society, I'm like, Jesus, we're nerfing everything. How are our kids able to grow up and go, you know what? For instance, I've told this story before. My daughter, all my kids are adopted. All my kids are black. My son comes up. Maya just called me a nigger. So I go, hold on a second, bud. Bring my daughter up. Babe, did you call your brother this? Yes, I did. Okay. By the way in which you used it is by far the worst thing that you could say to another person, as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So what are we going to learn from this? One, you don't say that stuff. It's horrible. All right? We had our little discussion. She went away. Then I asked my son, are you a nigger? He goes, what? Because I ask weird questions like this all the time. So he's like, what's Dad trying to mental kung fu me with?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He goes, what? I go, are you? Are you that word that she called you? He goes, no. I go, that's right. You're not stupid and you're not fat and you're not retarded. You're not any of these things that horrible people could say to you that are horrible. You have to know who you are. And if you're going to fall apart because somebody says a word, you need to know who you are, bud. That might have been too much. But in my mind, I'm thinking, when I see in social media, and I'll call them snowflakes, when I see mainstream media talking about these huge rallies about you can't use this word because I'm triggered and I can't handle it. It's a sound. And because I heard this sound, I'm going to fall apart. I weep for the future. So I look at my kids and I go, listen, how do I as a father prepare you for the world? Okay, well, I had to desensitize you to this. Yes, your sister said this to you, but are you? No, you're also not white. So when somebody calls you white, don't put up with that shit either.
Well, and I like what you did there was that you acknowledge that this might happen again. And how can I prepare you, or how can we help you be more prepared?
Right.
And one of those ways is to remember who you are. You know, no matter what anybody calls you, you're still strong, you're still you're still all these wonderful things. Because the reality is it might happen again. And we don't want to sugarcoat it and nerf it that it's not, and that your daughter should never say that again, and it will never happen again.
Right.
Well, the reality is it probably is. And like bullying in schools, the reality is there's always going to be teasing.
Right.
You know, there's no eradicating.
Right.
We don't want the extreme bullying that happens.
But you know what was odd was a week ago, my son came home and I said, "How was school today?" He goes, "Well, one of the bad kids freaked out." I said, "What do you mean one of the bad kids freaked out?" "Well, he threw a punch at Weston, and then a teacher tried to hold him, and he got away from that teacher, and then he tried to hit me, and then another teacher tried to hold him, and then he got away from her, and then a third teacher tried to hold him, and he got away from them, and then he hit another kid." And I go, "Let's go back to the beginning. Why did this kid freak out?" "Oh, well, because we were playing where he normally plays, and we were kind of we were saying some things to him, and he didn't like it, and then then we started saying these things that were just completely ridiculous, Dad, but he was freaking out." And I go, "You realize that is bullying, right? Mm-hmm. You were being a bully. You saw that it was freaking somebody out. You saw that it was upsetting somebody. Could have stopped, should have stopped, because there's joking, and I can call him a jackass, right? If he doesn't take it well, I stop."
Right. Absolutely.
So you can joke around with somebody, but as soon as somebody doesn't like it, or you can see that they're not enjoying it and they're starting to freak out, you stop.
Right.
"You're being a bully." "No, I'm not, Dad. I'm not being a bully," because according to these things on how they teach us what a bully is, I'm not that.
Interesting.
You don't understand the definitions of what these words are, which concerns me, you know, which also concerns me when I'm like, "Oh, hey, God, I love that shirt over there." My kids are like, "Where?" I'm like, we might be in a store." I'm like, "That guy's wearing it right over there." "What guy?" "The black guy." "Oh, that's racist." "Oh, for the love of fucking God." It's not racist. It's descriptive. And you go to school. Don't they teach you the definitions of these things? Like racists, they don't understand bullying either, it seems like. Todd, with your kids, have you seen anything similar to that?
I've seen similar, just the other morning, I came downstairs. My oldest was kind of hanging over my youngest, and he was scrubbing a pan because he got done cooking himself breakfast. And my oldest was saying, "You know, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? You know, if you weren't so fat." He made a comment about him being fat, and then something else.
One of your kids?
Yes. Yeah, they're both being pulse. So he was just being shitty. He's just being shitty.
Right.
And so I go, "Hey." And he turns around, caught red-handed, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
I go, "Why don't you go sit over there outside the kitchen until he's finished, and I'll come down and talk to you. Don't move." And so I came down and sat with him. I was like, "Do you remember last year when you had really long hair and a kid was making fun of you at the lunch table and you cried and got very upset? And then you and I talked about how, not very similar to what you did with your kids, but kind of." And I said, do you remember how that made you feel? What did that feel like when that kid was making those noises and doing those things to you? And it made you cry. And he started, when we walked through it all. He's been in therapy too, so he's well practiced at expressing himself. So he's like, "I felt this way and I felt this way, and it really kind of ruined my day because then I couldn't refocus and all this other stuff." And I said, "So you were just doing that to your brother. You just made him feel like shit. Mm-hmm. And he's somebody you're supposed to love and care about. So not only do we don't do that to anybody, we don't do that to people that we love and care about especially." I said, "Could you have handled that any other way?" And so we walked through that. But again, I like having those references. That's what I like. Because, I mean, it goes with the definitions like you were talking about. I don't have to have something on a wall. I have example A of what you just did. I can relate it back to how you felt when somebody did that to you. You know, now he very quickly was like, well, if you hadn't done this, this, and this. And I'm like, so he made you say really mean words to him? Like, come on, let's give me a break kind of thing. So I like having those opportunities, but I do see them growing, though. That's the cool part, is I see them changing so much because they are becoming more aware of those things. And at least in their school, it seems like they do a really good job of, they're actually doing a thing right now about cyberbullying. So talk about the social media aspect of it, of being isolated, and then all of a sudden you're getting tweets and posts about you and all this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, God, that would suck so bad. I'd probably throw my phone out the window so I don't have to see it anymore. It's probably like one of those bad movies. You throw your phone out the window, then your laptop pops up.
Right.
Throw your laptop out the window, the TV pops up. It's like, Jesus, I can't get away from any of it.
Can't get away.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, thank God we didn't have social media when I was a kid.
Oh,
when I was
God.
a teenager, I made some horrible decisions.
The haircuts alone.
Yeah,
would be
but maybe 5 people saw it. Maybe 5 people knew about it because it would talk a little bit. And then maybe it was an urban legend. Maybe a whole school would know about it. Maybe. But today, with social media, you make one mistake. One young girl does one questionable nude pic to her boyfriend. Whew, everyone knows. You can't take that back. There are consequences to those actions that, as a young person, you're not even fathoming could happen to you, how it could wreck you emotionally, right?
And I never had the confidence. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, even impulse control, they're
Right.
not fully developed in that. They're not
Right.
thinking through it before they just do it. And
I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to send a picture of my penis to somebody. You're 15. We don't want to see your penis. And why do you think somebody wants to see that? Again, is that a social construct that dick pics and nude pics are like the thing to go back and forth? Because it is an issue, and I didn't know it was an issue. Was that your neighbor was telling me this summer, I can't remember who that was saying, oh, yeah, we're really struggling with some stuff at school. I'm like, what? Girls and guys sending pictures of themselves to each other. And I was like, it was one of those, again, I felt very old because I was like, I can't even wrap my brain around it because I guess Polaroids were popular when I was a kid, but
Polaroids were.
and you shake it like a Polaroid picture.
Sure.
So I'm like, I didn't even come across my mind to take a picture of myself and give it to my girlfriend.
Yeah.
so but they're like 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, even younger. One of
Well,
my
yeah,
friend's
even
daughters was like, yeah, the closest you're going to get to a full frontal. She had this really witty comment. She had a really witty comeback to the closest you're going to get to a full frontal. Something I can't remember what it was. But it's this thing as a parent. I don't know how to do the 27 different ways they're doing division nowadays in schools. I can't help my kids. I've been removed. I won't get into that. I won't drag you through that.
Yeah, please don't. It's been multiple podcasts.
I won't. But I also can't. I also feel like I'm way behind the times with what's out there, with what kids are into. I don't know what the cool thing is. I'm too old, type of thing. How do you, as a parent, help your kid deal with something you have no fucking idea how to deal with?
right. Yeah.
Keep track of it.
Yeah, how do you do? What would you suggest to a parent who's like, listen, my kid, they just kind of wrecked themselves socially with this. We're dealing with this. How do you get through those perils?
Yeah. Well, and so all throughout time, parents are always one step behind their kids.
Sure.
They're always,
Yeah.
and like
That
our
damn
parents.
color TV.
Yeah, right. Always trying to figure it out. But I think the difference now is that things happen so quickly.
It's
nowadays.
instantaneous, right?
It's
Almost.
instantaneous,
Yeah.
yes. And so, and I don't think parents are we're catching up maybe now, but we weren't well equipped when all this stuff came out with, that there needs to be more monitoring, and you have to be kind of on top of what your kids are doing. You can't expect that they're going to make good choices.
And I have not done a very good job in the sense that
It's not
I'm not
easy, though.
teaching
Yeah.
my son very well. I'm to the point now that he walks in the door. Let me have the phone. I take it, I go plug it in, and he doesn't see it. Well, I will allow him to go check if he's had like messages from friends to see a basketball game, something like that. But otherwise, it will be in his hands and in his face every single moment that he has free.
Yeah.
And every other moment besides that is eating and sleeping and other things. So he doesn't do a lot of other stuff sometimes. It's just that. And that starts scaring me as a parent. And so I get in that mode of maybe lots of people where I'm like, okay, that's it, done, shutting it all down, we're done, kind of thing. So, and I know that's why I need to teach him how to use it responsibly, because it's an incredible tool if you think of it as a really incredible tool. We were just talking about, I don't know if I could ever go back to a flip phone because I love Google Maps. I can get anywhere and not worry about anything.
Right.
I'm heading to Florida on Sunday.
We have our own vices. We have our own vices.
And I want to be.
right?
I know I can go to Florida, and it doesn't matter because I'm going to be able to get anywhere I need to go because I have this device. I like it
And
for
look up anything. Where's the restaurant? Where's whatever.
get some
Right.
Yelp reviews.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not going there now. Instead of wasting $50, now I can go to a good restaurant, right? So it'd be hard to get away from, but there is a really attractive part of getting rid of some of those things. If it's not other than so my youngest son is going to be, or second youngest son is going to be going to 7th grade, and he's going to be the only kid there. His brother is in 8th grade now, so I kind of use his cell phone as a communication device for both of them, and their mom and I both do. So next year, our oldest will be at the high school. He'll be at the junior high school by himself. I'm going to get him a phone, but I'm kind of thinking it might be a flip phone. Like I don't necessarily have to get him a
Right.
phone that I then have to battle.
Right.
You know, maybe I can get him a flip phone, and then he uses that for a while. And I say, hey, I think you can handle graduating up to whatever because you've shown me that you can be responsible for it. And he's actually really good at that stuff too. So I'm probably being a little too harsh about it. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of them. He's my one kid where he's just like, I know that he does the right thing. Usually when I say get off of that, he gets off of it. There's like not a lot of debate or battles and things like that. He's really thoughtful. But I kind of feel like as a parent, I need to step back a little bit and go, okay, maybe I start with a lower model. That's not it's quite so complicated. And then maybe when he gets to high school, I'll get him a smartphone. That way he can communicate
Well,
with his friends.
The
or
reality
something.
of
I don't know.
finances is something that you can't just forget about, right? All of my kids want smartphones. I can't afford it. If you guys want to like do a Patreon thing for me and donate to the show so that I can get my kids smartphones, awesome. But that reality of I just can't afford all of my kids to have smartphones. So then you have to start thinking outside the box, which I was thinking about just the other day. Also with flip phones, I'm thinking, okay, each of my kids has an iPad. So they have a tablet. They can play games. They can do their thing. Do they need that exact same thing with just in a smaller model? No. They want a phone. Why do they need a phone? I want them to have a phone so that they can call me if they need me.
And vice versa.
Oh, wait. A flip phone would do that. And it probably wouldn't be distracting when they're in class. Because you can't hide a fucking tablet. Ha ha!
Well, the hard
I
part,
gotcha.
But guess what? My son the other day forgot his phone and just begged me all day long. And luckily, I have the flexibility to deliver some things that they forget, which is nice. But this time, I was kind of like, I would have really stressed my day to make an extra trip. So I was like, okay, I'm in too many places today anyways. I can't make it. And I thought, this is okay. And then it came across, Dad, I need it for class. And they were doing some kind of thing in class where everybody pulled out their phones and they were doing some group thing. So now
Rachel's like, "Aw," and I'm thinking, what? How? Why would you do that as a teacher? Why would you say, "Oh, you guys, cell phone's distracting," just like
No,
your
I was the
freaking
same.
fidget spinner? And now I'm gonna
You misconstrued
incorporate
her reaction.
Now I'm gonna
Yes.
incorporate a smartphone into this. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Rachel.
okay. I'm actually in agreement with you. I was thinking, like, why did the teacher do that?
Okay, all
Like,
right.
Yeah,
See,
I
we
thought
have
it was.
we have more in common than what others might think.
I think it's, but so then you, it's almost, it's not the social battle you have with it now. Now it's, understandably, teachers saying, do we keep fighting this fight or do we start integrating into what we're doing because it's what the reality of the world is now? Am I being like Don Quixote and I'm fighting windmills with like a knight in shining armor about silly things about that? Because I mean, it makes me think that, wait a second, if schools are using it, then I need to get my kid a smartphone. I mean, that's my first thought was like, wait, well, now what do I do? He's needing his phone for class. But then I was like, well, fuck that. I'm not doing that. She can get it on a computer. We have computers in your classroom. Get on there and do it.
Not every kid in the school has a smartphone. That can't be, right?
Right.
You wouldn't think.
You wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But you know what? Is
You
this
could
an
have
old?
been
Is this
BSing
an
me,
old
so.
person thing? Is this an old person? Because my kids come home with a laptop, and I go, "Oh, why do you have a laptop?" Well, because the school says I have to have a laptop, Dad. I mean, we got to do a Google Classroom. There's only things that I can do on this laptop, Dad. I go, we have 4 computers in this home. You don't need a laptop. But, Dad, we need a laptop because, sometimes our assignments are on that. We turn them in, we take them to school and show them on the laptop. I'm like, what happens if you drop that laptop? Then I got to pay for the repair, right? What if you download something? What if you get on an inappropriate site? What if you wreck this thing? I'm thinking of the finances. And I just don't see why it's a necessity to incorporate certain things. If you want to say to a kid, now, Todd, there might be kids that don't have computers. Like what you're saying, not every kid might not have a smartphone.
Right.
But you would think almost every household has a computer.
And where's the school in this? Like, are they sitting down with you guys and saying these are their expectations? You need a smartphone, or we're going to be sending a laptop home, and this is how you deal with it. I mean, they should be doing like full trainings for parents.
Exactly.
On
And I just had this
this
conversation with a teacher the other day at my son's school, and I said, I told them the story that he just regaled, and I said, he might have not seen a piece of paper that told him about it or whatever, but that shouldn't happen either. So I said, I hope that if you guys start doing those kind of things as well, that you let me know way ahead of time. Hey, on Tuesday, so-and-so is coming home with this device. These are the requirements. This is what's going to happen. This is what you're liable for, like you talked about. Because it's not necessarily that she has a laptop that's the issue. It's like everything else that we don't know about. That we're liable for, that we don't know what's going to happen, and that's the hard part. And then it just popped in my head just now. I can see my poor child being ostracized because everybody's like, "Ha! You got your dad bought you a flip phone. I got the new Apple 19.5 X3, whatever it is."
Dude, for
And so
sure
then-
that's going to happen.
and so
It
then he can
happened
be-
when my
he
sister
can be
couldn't
tough.
guess jeans.
Exactly. I was going to say.
My mom
he
had
can
to
get
go
tough.
buy jeans, and then she found at the Goodwill a pair of Guess jeans. She ripped the tag off, re-sewed it onto my sister's ass.
Really?
Yeah, because
Wow.
that's always something. It's always going to be,
It's
hey,
so
look what I got that
inventive,
you
though.
don't
That's awesome.
have.
I would have never
I
ever
like
thought to
it.
do that. That's great. I
Really?
could have got Z Cavaricci's sewn all
No,
over
no.
the place.
No, you can't
For
do
me,
that
it was
because
Jabot's. They had that little tag in the front. Do
The
you remember
what?
Jabot's?
Gerbeau's jeans.
Yes.
Fucking absolutely.
the Z,
love
you can't
Gerbeau
fake
jeans.
Z Cavaricci's because Z Cavaricci's had like 15 belts.
And they were
buckles.
weren't they like
And
a
it was
high-waisted?
Yeah, it was like a dude's garter belt. No,
And right now it would just hang over there horribly. So I'm glad
Right.
they're gone.
and
But
you would
it's
peg leg it.
True. There's always going to be something.
It's
And
always gonna be
teaching
something.
your kids how to cope
Well,
with it. And
there'd be a good
hopefully-
example that you talked about.
Yeah.
So you can't handle. So how are you going to handle this? You have a flip phone. Everybody else has smartphones. How are you going to handle this? What can I do to help you cope on this?
Yeah, and I fall back a lot on when I first met my wife's family. When I first went to Makokata and met them all, and I got to interact, or I got to witness how my wife interacts with her nieces and nephews, and she was just relentless. She was just teasing them and on them, but it was this loving. You could tell it was bullying slathered with the thickest amount of love, and everyone's laughing. And I'm thinking, anybody who tries to bully any of you is in for a rough time because you're going to be like, seriously, that's your weak ass shit that you're bringing? My aunt gives me a harder time than that. And right then and there, I thought, oh, this is the perfect way to raise a kid. You infuse so much love. You infuse so much. You're in the tree of trust. And yes,
In the nest.
you look like shit and you smell kind of bad. Go take a shower, you stinky skunk. But you infuse it with so much love that kids are like, oh. And there's this. environment of let me shoot back something smart and something funny.
I think that works for certain families.
Well, it definitely works for my lady's family.
Yeah, and I think, but probably that family has a temperament and personality style that works for. But there could be mismatches sometimes where maybe husband's like that, wife's not, and the kids aren't. And then instead of it being joking and fun, it feels mean. And mean fun.
Could be.
So,
Well, and kids have a hard time with
that
sarcasm,
happens.
too.
I mean, plenty of the patients I see, there's mismatches like that happening where dad's like, don't they get that I'm kidding?
Yeah.
No, it feels like mean fun. They don't get it.
You might actually be seeing some of my neighbor kids because they come over to my place. I'm like, listen, shower? Did you shower? Because I'm smelling a little something. You might need to leave. In fact, I want you to leave.
But they all
go
like,
leave.
but
I want you to come back. In fact, I took a moment. I did. The kid stunk. He just reeked. And there was like 5 or 6 other kids, and they all start laughing, right? I'm sure he felt ostracized a bit. And I go, but I said, listen, I really want you to come back. I really want you to come back and have fun with us. But you have to realize you stink. So take care of your nasty ass.
You're a dick.
But maybe you could have said that.
I could have. But for whatever reason, it's worked. That type of personality has worked for me and worked for these kids that always come over.
Yeah, they all love you. So
they don't all love me, but
and he may be used to you enough that he's like expects
right
that from you.
So is it one of those things where you have to like know your audience? Like you really need to know your audience, and your audience needs to know you and go, listen, Mr. Sculla, he's kind of a dick, but I know he cares about me.
Right, absolutely, right.
Is that the missing ingredient? Maybe.
With you, there's so many things I'm unsure about that I just don't want to step out of bounds and say something.
My kids are always like, I can't believe you said that. Why?
Oh, you're that bad, huh?
You're 14. You can't believe I said this? 14 years of me saying stuff like this, and you can't believe I said that? Come on, son. All right, I do want to ask you. There's a couple of questions that people have posted to us.
Okay.
I do want to thank Kevin, Bradley, Shannon, Christine, Amy, Ted, Kathy for watching, and Jen for watching us. If you guys have any questions that you would like me to pose to the professional therapist, if you guys have any questions about what's happening in your own life and maybe help for your kids, throw them on here. Throw them on Facebook Live, and we'll get those questions asked, or I will send them to her if it's after the show. Yeah. Here's a question.
Okay.
Now, let me set the scene. Divorced couple. A few kids. The youngest kid was 5 when the divorce was finalized. The other kids, the older kids, seem to be handling things okay. The youngest really has a hard time at times letting go of dad when it's time for mom, and really has a hard time letting go of mom when it's time for dad. And at times the youngest is okay, but a lot of times there's uncontrolled weeping. There's no type of consoling. Is that something to be worried about? And should this person seek counseling for that younger kid, or is this normal?
It all depends, when I hear a 5-year-old that's having those kind of struggles, it doesn't completely surprise me. But that doesn't mean that it's not something to be addressed. So the other kids, the way they can think about things is a little different. So the youngest is in this magical realm of thinking. And so he's not always thinking in reality like we do. So things could still happen because of him. They're still very egocentric. So we don't know what he's thinking. If it's a he, I don't know, she or he.
Well, I'm sure it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
All right, we're going to just use what comes out of my mouth. But so oftentimes at that age, they might think, because I was so bad, my parents had to split up. Because I spilled the milk too many times and dad yelled at me, my parents got divorced. Now
that's a maybe. Right. They might feel that way.
They might.
Right.
But at this age, it's something to look at. So if he's having this much trouble with it, there might be something in there that we don't know that he has kind of connected in a wrong way that needs to be addressed and figured out.
So you would recommend some time with a trained therapist, not a life coach.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely a therapist, not a life coach. They don't have training in this that I know of. So when a child is as young as under 5, I would say under 6, most often work can be done through the parents, and the child does not even need to go to therapy.
Okay. So it's more of a guidance for the parent to parent better.
Yeah, more effectively. It's for the parent to learn, because it's about kids at that age learn best through their parents and in the relationship of their parents.
Okay.
Meeting once a week with a therapist as a 5-year-old, they're just going to be saying things to please me. You know, they just want to be nice and have fun, and where they're going to learn most is through their parents, and we want that connection to be better. And so if the parent needs help on how to talk about these kind of things with their kids, how to help them express their emotions, get under there, and if they don't feel comfortable that they don't know how to do that, then get some help in figuring that out.
Okay. So more help, more help for the parents on how to parent the child instead of necessarily you being able to step in and help, because the communication is easier through them. Yeah,
it's easier. It's less stress on the kid, because going to a therapist is, you know, they might think it's fun for some time, but it's a stress in their routine when things are already disrupted because they're shifting houses, things are already changing. We don't need to add in another stressor. Even if it's a fun stressor sometimes, not another stressor. If the work can be done through the parent, that's great. Sometimes, though, we will bring the kid in with the parents and do the conversations together. But I would not recommend it in the way that I was trained in the research that I know is doing individual therapy with a 5-year-old. Isn't going to get much progress done at all.
Okay.
So that would be...
Now, that kind of kicks back to something that I've been surprised at dealing with. Parenting is just a challenge. Yeah. It's hard work. You're always on. You have to always be on. And when you're off, you can scar your kid. But my oldest boy has always been the most loving, you know? So if he saw his grandmother, he would give her a hug. He would go out of his way to do the really loving thing. But at the same time, he's the one that cannot stand to lose. He accuses everybody of cheating. He comes home and has an emotional breakdown. And at this point, now up to this point, we've had to have I tried to have talks like, okay, how can I describe this in a different way? Oh my God, I feel like I'm almost out of options here on what I could say. His whole life he's been this way. Now he's 13. Now he's becoming this young man. Now he's getting big enough, bold enough that he stares my wife down. He's taller than my wife. And the first time this happened, this was months ago, but he got so angry that he now has this presence about him that he was trying to intimidate his mom for the first time. And as a dad, I said, listen, when I heard about this, you know, like when we were kids and he's, hey, wait till your father comes home. I know there was something like that came out of my wife's mouth. Sure. And when I came home, I thought about it all day at work. And I thought, okay, I don't want to handle it like my father would have handled it. Bud, let's talk about this. And I tried to reason. I tried to go through these things. And I go, you know what? We've talked about this for so many years, about you having such a hard time communicating, using your words, trying to get people, trying to understand what other people, their motives for doing stuff, knowing that people aren't doing things to hurt you. You know, it's not them versus you all the time. Yeah. But I'm out of suggestions. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say. I think you might need to go see a therapist. And he absolutely broke down. Yeah. taking a kid to a therapist. I mean, at that point, as a parent, what do you do?
So, okay. So prepare yourself to hear something hard.
I love it. Bring it.
Okay. Because, and this is, I'm not criticizing or no judge, because parenting is really hard. And of course, I have all this knowledge. I went to school for this. So,
Right.
of course, I can be the expert. But you are the expert on your kid. So when you say that to your kid and that he broke down like that, I'm thinking, of course, because you are supposed to be the one who can help him. He doesn't know how to change.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how to communicate better. He doesn't know why he's doing the things that he's doing. And now you're saying you have to go see someone because you're so hard to deal with. I can't even help you.
Right.
And so another reason that I would argue, parents go to therapy first. Because it's less stressful on the kid. If you can learn how to help him, it's going to feel way better to him than having to see someone who...
All right, I'm in. What are you doing next Wednesday? Because I'm all about it. I'm all about. I want my kid to feel. I want my son. I want all my kids to feel happy and secure and strong.
Yeah.
And when they go out in the world, they can handle it. But they also know, I don't want them to think back on their time as a child, kind of how I look back on my childhood and go, ugh.
Well, here's another thing that's... Yeah, I don't mean to go too deep into your family, but this is what I do. So
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But, you know, oftentimes we're not raised with knowing how to talk about emotions or how to see certain patterns in kids. But especially when they're adopted, it doesn't have to be this way, but it can be even harder because when they're genetically similar to us, we kind of see traits that are similar.
Sure.
And go, oh,
That's what I went through when I was a kid.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's got a little similar temperament. This is how my dad dealt with it or whatever. What I'm hearing from your kid, this might be wrong again because I'm just basing this off little information, but that he's a sensitive kid. And so when he feels emotions, he feels them really big. Mm-hmm. And so when he feels those loving emotions, you can feel it. And he loves his grandma and he feels so good. But when he feels any emotion, so anger or sadness or hurt, it's going to be big. Maybe bigger than you, because maybe your style just isn't that big. And so what happens is these kids don't know how to make those feelings smaller. And when our feelings are big, our feeling center is back here in the back of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so our frontal lobe, which is where all the rational, logical, calming thinking happens,
Sure.
The blood starts going back here to your emotional part of your brain.
Okay.
And you start losing that ability to think rationally and logically. So like when you say he can't communicate, he can't tell us or what, no, because he's offline up here. He's back here. And so he couldn't even talk if he wanted to because he has to calm down his body first and get his emotional part of his brain calmed down so his frontal lobe can start working better again, and then he can communicate with you. But you don't know all that. You didn't know to teach him that. But you going to a therapist, you get to learn it, and then you get to teach him, which probably feels better to him.
Yeah, and to me, it's backwards than what I was thinking.
Okay.
In my mind, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. The way I was thinking of the situation, I thought, I have to know what is happening in your head. So I need somebody to be able to get in your head to translate it to me so that I can figure you out.
It sounds like exactly what you're talking about. Then you go to a therapist to help you do that.
But
right?
I didn't think I had to go to the therapist to be able to learn how to unlock your brain. I wanted somebody else to unlock your brain. And then when you're done with your time, I'll be right back, son. I'm going to go talk to the therapist. She's going to tell me all your secrets. And, oh, by the way, this is how he feels. But that's what I think.
That's the old way of doing therapy.
Yeah, and I think that is a very common way of thinking. Like, oh, you're having an issue, go. Mm-hmm. Instead of, I'm having a problem handling you. I'm having a problem understanding you. You know what? I'm going to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. Why would you? I'm not the one with the problem. You're the one acting out.
Right.
But I'm going to go to therapy. That's unique. It's interesting.
It is not now really makes me question.
Are your hands cold because you got your hands under your bottom?
it's a physical reaction because am feeling like I didn't do things correctly. Does that make sense? And I don't mean, and you didn't make me, you're not making me feel that way, but
You
I'm
should.
thinking
No,
now,
I'm glad that you made him feel bad because this is one of those loving. You're in the tree of trust.
Because there's no
this
right
is
or
one of the,
wrong
this is one of the
way.
good opportunities he likes to hammer the shit out of me about. But it makes you think that, I mean, I got separated and started getting divorced. My kids were struggling. I was struggling. And so I went and sought therapy. And I thought it'd probably be good for them as well to at least be able to, they're a little bit older. They could express themselves a little bit better. But it now makes me think that, again, I didn't know any difference.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, it's good to understand that making sure I was healthy and I was understanding things, even in a small way, would have benefited them as well. Because I didn't necessarily go to therapy to work on my parenting. I went to work on myself.
Right.
So, and now it makes you think that, my current therapist is saying things like, they seem like they're doing really good. Like, we're instead of every week, we went to every other week, and now we're once a month. And she's like, I think they're doing pretty great. And I'm like, hey, if you think so, I'm down, and we can see how we can change that up. But it makes me think as I'm tapering it off for them, maybe I need to start doing more for me so that I can keep going with how they're doing. They're doing better, so how can I keep supporting them doing better? Does that make sense?
Maybe.
So it makes me change my thinking a little bit about it because I have plenty of shit to work on too. So I mean, it'd be perfect.
You really do. You really do. You know what? Along with what you were just saying, I wanted to go back and kind of rehash something that Todd was told, which has never sat well with me.
Okay.
I've never understood. So you know what? Now that I have somebody who can help Matt be a better Matt, maybe you can describe it better for me, because when I hear something, it makes me angry. And it doesn't make sense to me. And I always fall back on, is that common sense? Does that make sense? And maybe I'm sure it's really old school,
Yeah.
but I want to bring this up. Todd, I apologize, but I got to say it. At one point in time, Todd was told by a professional that you can't expect much from a young child because their brains aren't developed enough. You can't say, I need you to do X, Y, Z, and expect that those things are going to be followed through because they're young. Their brains aren't developed enough. They can't possibly comprehend what you're throwing out in the way that you're throwing it out there. Mm-hmm. I'm going to generalize. If I really fuck it up, please tell me.
Hey, you're fine.
Okay?
Even if you do, I don't.
No. If I get it wrong, I want you to correct me. And then he was told, you need to negotiate with your child. Have a complex conversation. Is this really the good choice that you want to make?
Uh-huh.
Can't we make better choices? Now, when I heard this, I thought, you just said their brains aren't developed enough to negotiate, to understand, clean your room, then do the dishes, and then do your homework. Mm-hmm. You're saying a professional told you that they can't possibly understand that. So then why would the professional then say, you know what? Let's have a meeting. Everybody, come on in. Let's have a meeting. Now, do you really feel like this is the best scenario for you? Let's think about a good choice. Let's think about all of our choices. Good choices, bad choices. It gets when Todd was telling me this, I'm thinking, dude, my fucking brain just exploded. You just made a simple situation turn into this enormously dramatic, complex situation because you're trying to negotiate with what? A brain that who the therapist said isn't developed enough
A huge
to
contradiction.
do. Yeah, I can't marry these two things together. So please, doctor.
Yeah, I'm
Help
happy
me.
to, because
Help
it
me.
sounds familiar.
Okay.
And that possibly it got lost in translation through,
Ooh, beautiful.
So
All
what
right.
I would imagine the therapist was saying was that if your child, because they're coming to therapy for a reason, so
The parent or the child?
the family,
Okay.
yeah, whoever.
All right.
I mean, there's an issue going on. So
Definitely with Todd.
so the kid is not doing something, or there's a problem,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And so kids will do well if they can.
Okay.
Okay? Kids don't like to disappoint. Okay? They don't like to be bad. Sometimes they act out and their emotion gets the best of them.
Hey, any attention is good attention at times.
Sometimes, yep,
Right?
exactly.
Even if I have to be bad to get attention,
Yeah.
sometimes if you're not paying enough attention to your kid, bad attention
if
is...
the things that come to mind to parent, which, like, all right, well, I told you to clean your room. That's not working. You've got, most likely, you went through all the typical things that you would think of to do, and none of that worked. And your kid doesn't know what to do differently. And so what my guess is that the therapist was saying they have a certain amount of capacities for planning and impulse control. And so it's not that you don't have expectations that they figure it out, but by sitting down and talking about it, you can help develop those skills even more because they're not fully developed. We know that. Their brain's not fully developed till 25.
Sure.
And certain executive functioning is slower. So what you're basically doing is you're acting as their executive function by walking them through the process.
You're modeling in
And
a way.
teaching
You're
them-
modeling. How can we possibly work through this?
Yeah.
You might not be there yet, but I'm going to
Yes.
model how
And
you
I'm
can
going to
go through
assist
that.
you by asking you to think this way. Like, what do you imagine would work? Can we problem solve? I'm going to help you learn how to problem solve. Now, saying that, though, not every kid needs that. There's something going on with that kid that whatever would work for a typical parent or whatever isn't working. And so you need to come at it a different way.
You know what? I'm glad you broke it down like that because, like I said, from the moment I heard it, I almost started having like seizures because I could not marry these two ideas together. But that totally makes sense. The kid can't quite figure out something I think is simple, right? These are some instructions. But even though they don't have that skill set, I have to model for them that skill set, and I need to train them and teach them this skill set. And how are they going to learn that skill set unless I take the time to show them as their role model? Your parents have to be the role model. Thank you. That actually makes a lot of sense, and I'm willing to put it away now.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes,
too?
go ahead.
And sometimes something is getting in the way of them doing what you're asking. So there could be, say, if there was a divorce and there's a lot of emotions going on, they're having a harder time following your directions. And so sitting down and talking through it, sometimes it's not just problem solving, but it's finding out what else is behind there. Oh, it's a big emotion. Like, you're actually mad at me and you're not doing what I want you to do because you want me to be back with Dad. And you have an opportunity to get what's under there. Is there something else going on?
Yeah.
It's that whole brain child book I told you about.
Brainchild?
The whole brain child.
The whole brainchild?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, but the best part about it, and this is one of the things that I do appreciate about Rachel, is that we read this book, we studied this book on many a road trip, highlighting, underlining, note-taking, and then, I don't know if it was Rachel who said it, but JD says, so do you think at some point you're going to utilize some of the things that you learned in this book? And I was like, oh. It almost is like the thing you talked about where, this is a terrible analogy, but when you said, oh, I thought you were going to go to the therapy and I was going to get the answers I needed. It was almost like I read this book and go, oh, wow, this makes a lot of sense. I understand this. Looks like it works. This is great.
Why isn't everything changing?
Why isn't everything changing? Because I just absorbed this book. And so she'll do things to me now, which really pisses me off, but it's funny at the same time, where she'll be like, why don't you connect and redirect? And I'll be like, fuck, all right, fine, you're right. I'll do it. I'll do it.
It pisses you off, but again, you've been pulled out of your comfort zone and you've been brought aware.
And holding me accountable.
Okay.
Piece of cake.
All right.
And then you do it, and it happens like that. It's kind of like magic.
Yeah.
I equate it to magic because I have talked to other people and recommended the book to other people and talk about that strategy in particular, and they're like, it is like magic. And the reason why it's like magic is it goes back to exactly what you were talking about, which is you calm down that, is it limbic? Is that right?
Yeah.
Part of their brain. You get the right emotional side to calm, it's getting calmed down. Now the left brain can come in and some logic and can start making some connections. And I did it one time this summer, and it happened instantaneously. I went from a pouty, crappy little kid who I was getting pissed off at to, hey, and I walked through the whole entire scenario from this book, and they say, no, he is on cloud nine, excited with everybody else. And before that, I was like going, hey, what's your problem? Let's go. We're have a wedding today. It's going to be awesome. Stop being pouty. This is stupid. Come on. That kind of dumb thing adults do, to going, hey, you really feel like...
That's what I
So
do.
you really feel like
I do that too much.
I took some power away from you. She gave you a choice. And then you came downstairs and I go, is that what you're wearing? And
I
away
remember this
I took away your
scenario,
choices. And so when I made the connections and I helped him make the connections, we both felt better. But it was like magic. It's kind of crazy. But you can't just absorb the stuff and then not use it. So that's why I was just like, okay, so maybe they need to calm down their therapy because their therapist thinks they're doing pretty good, and maybe I need to go back and get some retraining or some thinking through some of those things too.
I think that was extremely helpful advice from the Wiccan. Magic.
The Wiccan. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
the Wicca.
Did I make it?
Wiccan.
It's magic because it's science. That's what I think
It's
it is.
magic.
It's magic because it's science.
You know. No.
Dr. Daniel Siegel. It's
Yeah.
all proof. It's all
Okay.
clinically
All
proven.
right.
Well, because you're mocking it with your singing.
You know what?
And it's
I
bad
am-
singing on top of it.
You know what? I like to mock you. That's just the way it goes. I want to talk about something else, which is like voodoo. I'm gonna make it. You know what? He does like the silver lining magic, like ooh, this pixie dust. I'm gonna go with voodoo because it's dark and it's shitty.
Oh.
You ready for this, girl?
Maybe.
All right, here we go. Self-sabotage.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, this is going to be bad.
I am uber aware that I sabotage the shit out of myself. Whether it's as simple as sugary drinks, I will say to myself, don't go get that Pepsi. It makes you sick. Don't go there. Your stomach hurts after you drink that. And I'm saying it to myself, not out loud, but I'm saying it like a mantra as I walk my happy ass to the vending machine and get another Pepsi. Self-sabotage. Also, I love my family more than anybody in the world. So many parents would die for their kids. They would make the ultimate sacrifice. Yet, many of you might be like myself. I am so much nicer and much more pleasant to the people that I work with. And yes, I care about you. I said I don't give a fuck about you all, and that kind of went through the company. I do care about you. But in regards, as a comparison to my family, I don't give two shits comparatively to my family. So why is
Sure,
it?
you help yourself out at all there.
No?
No, it's okay.
Well,
it's a loss
You really
already.
should.
Keep
You really
going.
should. Am I digging? Anyway, even though I know these things, I treat these people at work. I don't lose my temper, generally. 99% of the time, I'm a goofball because I want to make people's day better. So I act silly. I act the fool. I come home. I'm like Sergeant Slaughter. And I say to myself, even as I'm losing control, stop.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of God, stop. I am saying that to myself in my head the exact same way I'm saying, please don't get that Pepsi. It makes you fat. It makes you sick. And yet, I can't stop my mouth from the lecture. I can't stop my voice from getting louder. I can't stop from thinking, if only I make a big enough example of this behavior, you'll think to yourself, you know what? The last time I did this, Dad really fucking lost it. You know what? I won't do that again because Dad really impressed upon me how terrible this could all work out
Yeah.
if I do that again.
How well has that worked so far?
Oh my God, that was the question I was going to ask.
You know what? You're right. There's definitely times that I think to myself, didn't work at all, and I'm creating scars in my kids' memories. A lot like my father did.
Okay.
Right? I know this. I'm saying it to myself, just like I'm saying it about the Pepsi. And yet, there's, I'm sure, a lot of examples that they haven't repeated
Yeah.
that I thought, you know what? That's going to reinforce my attitude. That's reinforcing how I'm treating my kids because I acted this way. They didn't repeat that. Okay.
Well,
they did this. I'm going to do that. Oh, they didn't repeat that. I can't think of all those examples, but it's not the way I want to be.
Right.
And I wanted to talk to you about self-sabotage because whether it's losing weight, whether it's being more loving to your kids or being a better spouse or being a better coworker or telling your mom on Mother's Day that you love her, we, for whatever reason, know what we should do, but why do we not follow through with that? Why do we all have such a hard time with self-sabotage?
It can depend on a lot of different factors. But since you're giving me your example, I'm
Yeah,
gonna use
run with that.
yours
Run
and
with that.
Run with that.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of other things going on, like depression or anxiety and things that I don't childhood. But I'm just going to give you based off what you're telling me right now. So with the Pepsi thing, there's a couple of things that you're doing that I think is maintaining your behavior. So one is you're using some pretty black and white thinking in it, like saying, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't need a soda. As if there's some rule out there that says you don't. When you use that kind of way of speaking to yourself, it tends to create a rebellious response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it. It's been so highlighted lately. I used to love to work out.
Yeah.
I loved it. Loved it. I mean, I used to tell my wife, listen, if I leave, it's not because I don't like you. I just like to go and work out or do something active. Now I tell myself later in life, dude, you really need to work out. You're starting to gain weight. Yeah. And as soon as I impress upon myself this need to do something, even if it's a need of something I already love to do, I instantly go the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I make a reason in my head not to do it.
Yep.
So unlock this riddle for me.
Yeah.
Unlock it.
And I don't know if it's the same thing. I was telling him I kind of mind fuck myself in a way where I start thinking, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym today, but I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to go down the treadmill. Like I convince myself that I'm just going to go just to be, because I feel like I'm not going to do anything crazy, because I used to do CrossFit, and so I would be prepping at like 4:30 in the morning, getting up and I do crazy shit, and I loved it. But now it's more along the lines where I don't want to go, and so I have to kind of like screw with myself to say, oh, I'm not going to do that right now, or I'm going to go right now. Or like the other day I was in the grocery store and I saw donuts, and I was like, oh, I'll get the donuts for the kids, but that's also a lot of donuts for me too. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just wait. Maybe I'll get something later on. I won't get that right now. Not knowing if that's really true or not, but again, kind of like screwing with myself so that I can change my thinking. It hasn't really had huge effects yet, but it's one of those things where I do feel differently about it because I'm not thinking like, oh God, fucking lazy bastard, not going today. I don't have those feelings anymore. It's more of like, oh, I didn't make it today. I'll try to get there tomorrow if I have the opportunity to.
So let me go back to this.
Yes.
So
can you please fix Matt?
So you create a rebellious response in yourself by saying, I need to do this, or I should be doing this.
Right.
And the other thing you're doing is our thoughts, the words we use in our thoughts connect to our emotions.
Right.
So when you're saying all these negative things, I can't remember what you were saying exactly, but like, oh, I'm such an idiot I'm going to be so fat and getting all that, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay, so now you're feeling...
Don't drink that. You're going to be sick. You're going to be fat. You're gaining weight.
Yes. So now you feel kind of shitty, right?
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
And then you want to feel better, and soda and sugar makes you feel better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're kind of setting yourself up with the way you're thinking. And so it sounds cheesy, but it actually works.
Are we going to do this whole Stuart Smalley
When
thing?
you think positively, you create positive emotions. And so if you say to yourself, it would be helpful if I didn't have a soda. I think I would feel a lot better tomorrow when I don't have the soda today. And imagine, I'm going to feel really good when I lose a couple pounds. I'm not going to have that soda today.
See,
I know, it
Is that
sounds
too
really
rosy?
no,
cheesy.
It's too
no,
rosy?
it's really good advice. And I think to myself, you know, maybe I'm making myself fat so that I'm not as appealing to women, so I don't cheat on my wife.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a whole nother
Jeez.
issue.
I was trying to
Wow.
think. I was trying to think of like the most crazy, weird thing to say. I don't really.
And he's
feel
really
that
good
way.
at it, though,
I don't
isn't
really
he?
feel that way.
Yeah.
I just
Very
wanted
skilled.
everybody to go.
Well,
did it.
works.
I don't really
Great
feel that
job,
way.
man.
It works.
But you know what's
Fantastic.
weird? You know what's weird? So, a lot of women actually feel that way. A lot of people who have been sexually abused as a young person gain a lot of weight, so they're not appealing
Right.
to the opposite sex.
And it's almost a physical barrier, too,
Yeah.
right?
But there's a lot. I guess why I'm asking about self-sabotage and all of this is because as you get older, you feel like, you know what? I'm seasoned. I should know these things. My kids think I know everything. I should know, well, maybe not everything, but I should at least understand myself, right? That's like the last great frontier is your own mind, your own self, to be in control of your own emotions, to understand why you feel a certain way, why when your wife puts on sweatpants, you're like, not tonight, why you're just so sad, and why you don't have more self-control over what you want to have control over. I mean, I've said for years, I would love, you know what? I'm going to write in my journal. I'm going to say, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to work out. Why? Because it's going to be great for me. And then I'm going to practice the guitar, and I'm going to do that for 30 minutes. And if I would have done that, by now, I would be probably as good as Eric Clapton. Eric, you and I both know I'd probably be as good as you. But I never did any of that. I never followed through with any of that, even though I'm 43 and I'm thinking, why do I not have control over these ideas in my head that I think, you know what? You'd be a much better dad if you never raised your voice. You'd be a much better dad if there was no belittling at all. You'd be a much better dad if you didn't lose control of yourself. And when you say to yourself in your head, calm down. Stop.
Do you know how
Do you
to
see the
calm
hurt
down?
in her eyes?
Do you know how to calm down?
No, I don't. I think the only way that I calm down, I have. I wouldn't perceive it as bipolar. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
but I see myself either as goofball. I'm trying to make you laugh. I'm trying to make you smile. I'm trying to make your day better. Why? Because I don't want to hear you bitch.
Yeah.
I don't. And that's the mentality I apply to my coworkers. I can't stand negative complaining. I just can't stand it. So I'm going to do whatever I can do that when you see me, a smile goes on your face because I'm the goofball, right? There's either that or this amazing pressure of being able to put out into the world kids that can survive in a world that I think is extremely hard, and there's glimmers of niceness. There's glimmers of beautiful. Whereas Todd would look at the world as, yeah, it's a beautiful place, but every once in a while it's harsh. I look at it as, you need to be a goddamn warrior to go out into the world. And if you're lucky, you're going to meet somebody who's wonderful and beautiful and kind and treat you right.
That's a
But-
pretty exhausting way to think.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah.
But I
You're always
have a
on
really
guard.
hard time getting around that. And right now is the first time I've actually verbalized that. But I think I can't get past that. That's how I view the world. And it's really hard for me to see all the beautiful things. When I do see positive things, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Really? You gonna blow some more smoke up my ass? Is it that nice?
You know, I think absolutely everybody could benefit from therapy. We've all learned ways of thinking at times, maybe some more than others, that can be really maladaptive. And we're not necessarily taught how to change our thoughts, but they're just patterns. We get really used to thinking certain ways, and we can learn to change them. I'm not saying that it's global for everyone. There's things like depression and anxiety and other kind of ailment, but a lot of those thoughts we can learn to change. But you aren't taught how to do that, and one of the first key steps is learning how to calm your body. And so when I hear you saying, calm down, but I don't know that you know how. And how to...
Well, I do meditate.
Yeah? Oh, good.
I do meditate.
Awesome.
At times. And I love listening to self-guided meditation. So I used to be a supervisor, and I was a terrible supervisor, just on the record. I was terrible because I think that there are some people who have learned to deal with stress really well.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who you could be swearing and screaming at him right in his face, and he's like, "Oh, have a good day." And he goes to home and he comes back to work. He's like, "So let's have a new day." It doesn't weigh on him. Whereas I would have nightmares about dealing with with people that were giving me a hard time at work. They're like, "Oh God, I got to deal with that tomorrow. Oh, I got to write that person up. Oh, I witnessed that. I got to deal with that." I was a terrible supervisor. I'm trying to think of why I even went down that road.
So you started meditating?
So to get out of my head, because I would be up late at night. I couldn't fall asleep. So to get past that, I found this guided meditation. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I would turn it on, my wife would joke about, "Oh, yeah, he's out." Like I would start just doing the long breathing and the guided breathing. And pretty soon it was just, as soon as she realized it was rhythmic, I'm out.
Perfect.
And I would have a good night's sleep. So I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. Like I kind of feel like that, right? I know there's little things that I know.
Okay.
Tonight, I went to my son's parent-teacher conference. We had to have an early one because the teacher said, "I don't want to wait. These things need to be addressed right now." So my son is nervous because dad's coming. Who's going to freak out? If any of us, mom or dad, it's probably going to be dad. Uh-huh. If anybody's going to go, "Oh my God," it's going to be dad. So I walk in, I pass the teacher. I'm like, "Hey, I'll see you in a little bit." Whew. Speed walk back to the classroom, find my son, sit down, look around. "All right, teacher's not here yet. All right, buddy, I want you to understand something. I'm not mad, and I love you. And the only thing that's going to happen right now is your teacher's going to try and help you be better, okay? I don't want you to stress about anything. This is going to be cool." I have little moments.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
I have little moments.
Yeah.
But there are glaring moments where I feel like, and maybe there's other people out there who feel this way that can relate, but I feel almost like a passenger in this, and I'm in the back seat and I'm watching through autopilot this craziness that happens.
So at those moments, I wonder, as you're feeling yourself, can you step away and take some of those deep breaths to get yourself back on track and just take a pause in whatever's happening?
You know, what used to be a great thing, and I never would have been able to do this with my father, and there's definite characteristics that I mirror from how my father raised me. Mm-hmm. So I might be losing my mind. I might be like, "Oh my God, you guys did what? I came home, you brought the bucket of dog shit into the house to put, because the dog made a mess in the house. So you brought the bucket of shit into the house, put the shit in the bucket, and then left it in front of the fireplace. You put on a snorkel and goggles because you couldn't handle the smell, and you forgot to take it back outside?" Okay, so I might have lost my mind, right? I'm trying to remember again where I was going with this example. But again, I have those moments where I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm freaking out. Uh-huh. My son, who I said, the one who is exuberantly loving at times, he walked over to me And he's done this since he was a little kid. So little that I am a fucking giant to him. Maybe 4 years old, and I'm losing my mind. And he would walk over and hug me and go, "It's okay, Dad. It's not a big deal. It's okay." And that would snap me out of it.
Yeah.
And I would laugh, or I'd be like, "Thank you, buddy. Thank you." And that would snap me out of it. But one, he doesn't do that anymore. But I've never been able to go, you know what? I'm sorry. Captain Insano showed up for a second. I got to step away.
Yeah. So sometimes too, you have to look at, I'm hearing a lot, this may just be what I'm hearing right now and not the pattern that you're talking about, but sometimes that transition from work to home is difficult because at work, it sounds like, and a lot of people do, have a different mask, kind of a different self that they are at work, because of course you can't show all your emotions, otherwise you get fired, right?
Yeah, right.
And it sounds like sometimes you have a pretty big mask of goofy, silly guy, because you don't want to hear that negativity, which again can be pretty exhausting. It can be a lot of work to be like that. And so sometimes what happens is when you make that transition home, it's hard, and that there's even more likely to be like blow-ups like that, and you're more vulnerable to it. And so putting something in place, like before I even walk in the door, I'm going to do 5 minutes of this guided meditation in the car before I get in. Or I'm going to go straight to the bedroom and lay down for 5 minutes, just get myself back on track so I can go into parent mode.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, because
that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way.
Take some time.
It was like almost guided meditation where I walk in the door. Hey, we got half an hour. The kids are all doing stuff. Let's go upstairs, and whether we connect or we talk or we kind of get the. Yeah, I really view it now as like this big transitional piece, because if I don't have it, I'm very aware about how I feel when I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And so now it's a regular thing where I walk in the door, I kind of say hi, see how people are doing, things like that, and then it's like, you ready to go upstairs? Yeah, grab a beer, grab a glass of wine, let's go upstairs and talk and connect, and it helps me. She may not even know that it does help that much for me, but it helps me stop this one thing and get prepped for the next thing. And then it's like, okay, gotta get dinner started. And then it's down to parent mode. And that helped me a lot. And it was one of those things where I didn't even realize it. I was always on parent mode because my kids are always with me. I'm always taking them to school and picking them up, and they're always with me. So I'm always on parent mode. And so even when I pick them up from school every day, I now do that. Even though I'm in the car with them for 15, 20 minutes, I still put them in the house. I go somewhere else, get myself together. But it was something that I didn't even think about ever. That changes my whole entire evening.
Yeah.
All the time.
And a little self-care.
A little self-care. Yep. Bottle of whiskey. It's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I generally go for like full body massages and chiropractor. I'm into that. I just haven't done it in a long time.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
That's some self-care, I guess.
You know what? Tonight was a great podcast. Thank you very much for being on, Rachel.
I think we should do like. Could you be like the Primal Scream? Because the Primal Scream name came from.
I know. I saw that.
Right. We did that on purpose.
Right.
Okay.
And so.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah. We were both got really tired of, everything being nerfed. You could not say, to the point where him saying the word nigger according to his kids and talking about that, everybody like going, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And he's going, "Whoa, hey, I'm talking about my all of a sudden I have to be very careful about how I'm talking about, so we were like, we're so tired of it. And when we talk together, we don't worry, all those filters are down, it doesn't matter, right? So we thought, oh, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the Primal Scream.
Right. And what was it, back in the 70s? There was a therapist that said, one great way to deal with the frustration of the world is to get out and scream primally.
Uh-huh.
But what we don't have, what a lot of us don't have anymore, is the space to do that. Is to be a little silly. I would challenge people who has really gone out into the wilderness, has gone away from people. It doesn't even have to be the wilderness. You can just like go to a development that hasn't been fully developed yet and just go to the gravel road somewhere and just scream and scream and scream and get that emotion out. I don't think a lot of people have done it because they would feel crazy. But think about how
But
confined.
people do it in their car. You know?
Yeah, people will do it in their car,
Yeah.
right? But think about how confining it is to, I have to be dad. I have to be a good husband. I have to be a good worker. I can't say these things. I have to keep everything bottled in. I'm so frustrated. I can't say it. I can't. All these things.
Yeah.
And you don't ever release anything. So, yeah, that's why I thought the Primal Scream would be perfect for this conversation, because we talk about everything and anything, whatever is driving us crazy, and we hate being set upon by limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And hate being labeled and bottled in a certain way of thinking. And I mean, that's why a lot of the time a lot of our friends who know us both outside of this know how much we get along and how much we love and care about each other. But they're always like, but you guys are always confronting each other. I'm like, no, he is. He tries to see the opposite side of it and then challenges me with it. And it drives me crazy. It bothers me, but it challenges me. You know, and I like that challenge. It makes me go, okay, I got to set aside my feelings and really think about what I'm thinking. I think I have had a situation with my lady. Hey, I want to talk about this. What the fuck? I don't want to talk about this. And I'm saying that in my head. Then I'm like, okay, she wants to talk about it. We'll see what happens. And it ends up being just fine. But it goes back to what you're saying, that comfort zone thing.
Right.
It pushes me out of my comfort zone, and then it changes you, you know? And you going back to the idea, too, of trying to change the way... Oh, that wasn't it either. Fuck.
Did you lose it again?
I did. See?
Dude, you got paper right in front of
It
you.
says Rachel on it. In case I was going to forget her name.
Yeah.
I only emailed her 15 times.
Well, Rachel, I hope that you had an enjoyable time. I would love it that maybe next time we don't focus so much on me. I have a lot of issues.
No.
Todd has wanted a therapist to come in here for a long, long time.
Not
and talk
because
to
of
me.
you.
I have a lot of black and white thinking.
Okay.
A lot of black and white thinking. It's tried. I've put a lot of effort into evolving to where it's black and white, but Todd might take a certain stance on something. Okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. Whether I agree with what he's saying or not, I'm going to go with the opposite of that. And a lot of times it will change how I feel about something. Like, I almost feel as if you can justify any action. So there might be somebody who's killed somebody. Well, can you put yourself in their shoes? Can you understand where they were coming from? How did they justify it? I can't see that because I'm in this paradigm. I'm seeing the world this way. But can I understand why a U.S. veteran might check a box so that they get extra money from the government? I can understand that. I can understand being a young kid, being influenced by an older mentor, right? Some people can't understand that. Some people would say, well, you're screwing us. I'm having to pay taxes for you and you don't have PTSD. I think that a lot of the discussions that we have, even though I have black and white thinking, taking that devil's advocate approach is so helpful for me. And I'm glad I got to ask you about the whole thing where the therapist told Todd about the developed mind. It's not developed, and
You were carrying that around for quite a while.
It just never rang true
didn't
with
make
me.
sense.
Like, it
Right.
never
Didn't make
made
sense. The
sense. So
contradiction was heavy.
yeah, because it never made sense. I'm like, God, there's something wrong with me.
Don't you think, though, when you
You
talk about
know?
this evolution and you changing, it can be detrimental at the same time if let go too far, but I tend to be pretty laid back about things. And when I screw up, if it's bad enough, I'm like, hey, I don't want that to happen again. I'll try to put things in place to change it. But I still have those mental blocks. But I feel like what's helped me cope even from real young age is like laughing about shit. And then even now, as the older I get, there are times I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe how old you are and you're still fucking doing that. That is crazy. Or something will happen. I'm like, I'm kind of glad that once in a while I trip over my own feet. It makes me realize that I'm still human, that I'm always going to be learning the rest of my life. I'm never, ever going to have it all figured out.
Right.
And that seems like it lessens a little bit of the pressure that I do put on myself.
Right.
Because it helps me relate to people too, because I had a hell of a week. And usually I'm pretty like, hey, It was a good week. Yeah, right? And this week was just like, I want to fucking punch people all week. Like Wednesday, I wanted to punch somebody in the face. That's the only thing I could think of was like, God, if I was in a different setting, I might punch them in the face. And then it happened on Wednesday, and then it happened on Thursday. And then today was me regaling the last 2 days. And I'm like, I'm in a really bad spot. I'm not giving them any of the same kind of space that I give myself.
Yeah.
And so when I hear those things, it catches me off guard, and I go, okay, settle down. And
Todd,
let's give some people some space.
Can I ask you a
kind of
question?
thing.
Can I take a moment?
Are you going to call me a snowflake?
No.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm not going to call you any names.
It always sets
Are
me
you
off.
happy with that?
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to call you any names, but I want to ask this. Is he crazy?
About what?
And Rachel, have you ever thought to yourself, oh, God, I just want to fucking punch that person in the... Is that a normal male response to things? Do women not get that physically aggressive in their head?
Testosterone?
Have you ever felt... Is it a normal feeling? Or should people feel shamed? Because, no. I say this because I think that people a lot of times go, you know what? This isn't normal the way I'm feeling. I shouldn't feel this way. I'm ashamed of how I'm feeling. And then they bring a lot of negativity down themselves when in fact it's a very normal thing. And I relate it back to like masturbation as a teenager.
Sure.
You're like, oh God, am I wrong? Should I be
going to
doing it this
hell?
many times?
Like,
Nobody else is
everybody
doing
else
this.
does.
Nobody else has talked to me about this. I'm a sicko. I'm a pervert. You're like, and then you grow up and you're like, no. I actually had to talk with my kids. I'm like, hey, by the way, if you do that, you're totally normal. They're like, what? What is that again? I go, you must be too young.
Well, Junior's the best example that I have for that situation because I said to him, I was thinking, I don't know if I talked about wet dreams or I didn't. It was a conversation on the cuff. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, he's searching for answers. And I go, you know what? Whatever that has, wet dreams, masturbation, that's pretty normal stuff. We all do it. I still do it all the time. Pretty normal stuff.
What, dreams or masturbation?
Masturbation. And so I saw him physically go, and he started tearing. And I go, buddy, what are you so upset for? He's like, I really thought something was terribly, something was terribly wrong with me. And I was like, have anybody told you that was wrong? No, it didn't, but it was so new. Mm-hmm. And his buddy that he was best friends with, they both were like, whoa, there's really something wrong with us. And he was like, I cannot wait to tell him that it's normal, that it's okay. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's totally okay. Just don't do it. Do it in the bathroom or the shower. Don't let anybody else see it. It's a private thing, but it's totally normal.
Well, hey,
when you get to be an adult, you can do it in front of people.
If
and
you're
get paid
younger
for it.
kids, if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation, have them come over to Crazy Uncle Matt's house, and I'll be like, hey, have you guys? It's totally normal. Don't worry about it.
I won't take any responsibility. I'll just give them all to you.
I was trying to think. Oh, I had said everybody does it, guys. Don't worry about it. And so one of my kids said, and my wife wasn't aware that I had this conversation with my kids. And so out of the blue, my son just goes, so Mom, do you masturbate?
Oh, gosh.
And she goes, what? And I go, Mom's going to lie about this shit right now. Watch. I go, let's go to bed. And she got away from it, and I hugged my son goodnight, and I was putting him in bed. I go, hey, by the way, when Mom gives you a hug goodnight, go ahead, ask her again.
I bet she wanted to kill you.
No. Okay, but back to my question. When people feel like, oh my God, is this normal? Should I feel this? Is it normal to feel like, God, I just want to punch you. I just want to swear at you. I just want to yell at you. I just want to have a little road rage, but in a controlled sense. Is that normal?
I mean, what do you think? I think you would say yes.
I would say yes.
Yeah. And I think, it all depends on how much it's happening and all that. But yes, people have those kind of thoughts all the time. If they get too intense or too realistic or whatever, maybe they need to talk
Or too
to someone.
often.
And
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was so able to recognize this week, because it's not a normal thing.
Because it's an everyday
Yeah,
masturbation thing.
I
Much.
didn't sit back and go, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm getting really angry. I didn't do that at all. I was just like, okay, I'm having a really tough week. I'm done with dealing with adults for a while, and I just need a break.
Yeah.
And I'll get some space between it, and it'll be okay in the long run. I didn't feel badly about it. I actually like it when I recognize the Matt in me.
Oh.
Okay, I do like that part
That's
because
so sweet. Isn't
because
that sweet?
because as you say very often,
I'm like
that
the
I'm a
yin
pussy.
to your yang. I
You
don't
like
say
that.
you're a
Yes, you
pussy.
do. It's
I call
okay.
you a snowflake.
It's okay, same thing as far as I'm concerned. But it helps me recognize that because I used to think that I had like this innate ability to see past things and through things. And I started realizing that it was really stuffing down and stopping a lot of emotion because I had a lot of all my kids say, "Oh, it just one of my favorite things about you is you're so calm, cool, and collected," and then they assume that you don't have any emotion.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Thanks, I am pretty calm and cool, but don't think for 2 seconds that inside I'm not raging about something or I'm really upset about something. I just tend to handle it differently." But I still have the same emotions that everybody else does. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, who also is a snowflake. Like the same thing. He's going, "Why do you think that I don't get upset?" And I was like, "Because you're always
don't show it.
you don't show it at all." Right? And so when I had that same experience myself, I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." So when I recognize my emotions, I enjoy it because I'm like, "Oh, see? You're a normal person. You're a human
You're
being.
not a robot.
I'm not a robot."
You're not a Cylon.
What the hell is that? Is that a Star Trek?
I don't know. I'm thinking it's
reference?
like a Battlefront. It's a
Battlestar
Battlestar Galactica. I don't know. I'm not into it, but it sounded right, so I went with it.
I'm not sure.
I went
that's
from
right.
here. I didn't go from here. Is that okay?
Back here, not back here, not so much.
Not so much here. Right back there. Rachel, I was trying to sign off earlier, but he wouldn't stop talking.
Sorry.
But thank you very
That's
much
okay.
for coming on. And
Yeah.
if you had a good time, and maybe she didn't, folks, let's just be real. But if you did have a great time, I would love you to come back because there's other things that I want to get into, such as, have you seen men have a hard time with what's going on with the Me Too movement? Like, how do I be a man? Is what I've thought of as a man wrong? Anyway, that's maybe
whole
something
nother
that's jumped into my head.
All
Whole
right.
nother conversation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different things that are happening in the world, and I know that you focus primarily on family and kid therapy. So I would love to have you back on and talk to you about different things like that.
Sure.
Todd, Sir, Squire, Knight, something.
The Robin to your
Gentleman.
Batman?
You're the Batman.
Oh,
I'm for sure Robin with the crazy nipple.
I was gonna say, did I get
Breasts.
the Batman suit with the nipples on it?
Go ahead. Yeah. Is there anything going on? What's new with you? What's up? What do you want to
Nothing.
sign off with? Anybody you want to tell anybody anything?
No,
Okay.
I like everybody. They're all great.
Great job. Great job, Todd. Thank you very much. That's it for tonight on the Primal Screen podcast. Next time, do we have anything special?
Nobody special, but in 2 weeks we have Justin Roberts from used to be on Channel 28, had a show, and now he's on WMT. He's gonna come on.
Yeah. So that guy who's not very special.
Why?
Way to go, Todd.
I bet you his parents think he's special.
I'm just saying you said he wasn't special. We're not going to have anybody special, but we are going to have this guy. I'm excited to
he's
have you on.
listening.
I'm excited. We're going to have a great conversation, you and me. Don't worry about Todd.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's it for tonight on the Primal Screen podcast. I'm Matt.
I am always of Todd.
And that's Rachel. And if you need some help, go see her. How can people contact you, by the way, if you're are you taking on clients? Or are you packed full of really broken people?
I'm pretty full, but my schedule opens up too, so I'm always.
And how
open
can
to
people
talk.
contact you?
They can call me directly at 773-266-4432 or email me at RachelMosierCounseling. Do you have it? You can put it up on
I'll
your-
put it.
Is
You
it
know what?
.com or
at gmail.com.
I'll put it in the description below.
Yeah.
And thanks everybody for watching this episode on Facebook Live, and it'll be on YouTube. So that's it. I'll see you later. Adios.
good night? You fucking moved it. You rested again.
I changed it all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, bye.
Can I take them off? Yeah.